So stress is when our brain is perceiving danger, right? We'll call it worrying about problems. But what the brain is experiencing is a misperception that there is danger in the present moment. And then the limbic brain, which is part of our more primitive brain structure, that's the part of the brain that keeps us safe from danger. It uses the fight, flight, freeze. It produces the stress hormones and making it hard to go into rest and relaxation mode. That part of the brain becomes habituated and reinforced when we have high stress factors in our life. So really looking at how much stress you have, the signs of stress, which is not sleeping well, having a lot of mental rumination, craving salty and sugar foods and overeating, eating at night, being irritable, feeling depressed, like life is hopeless. These can be signs. Gut issues, so having difficulties with digestion can also be a sign of stress. Okay, so now we're on to the topic of neurofeedback, which is brain training, in that we're going to use cues that the brain sends out to then give it feedback so that it can see when it's in maladaptive patterns. And specifically, one of the biggest maladaptive patterns the brain gets into is that stress response patterning. So staying in that fight, flight, freeze energy chronically is very detrimental to the quality of our lives and the health of our brains. And so with the neurofeedback training, what we're doing is we're basically teaching the brain to pay attention to the here and now. And what is significant about that, if you remember, that stress brain, the limbic brain, is misperceiving the present moment as unsafe, as dangerous. And this is an autopilot part of the brain. It just goes into action. It goes into hyperarousal and that fight, flight, right? So we get a speedy mind. We get, oh my God, I got to get out of here in various ways. We get aggressive and irritable, or we go into the collapse of the freeze response. Why bother? Life is hopeless. We want to just stay in bed. And those are the signs of stress. And that's one of the things we really want the brain to see when it trains with neurofeedback. If the brain now has the opportunity to register what's maladaptive, it's going to then go into action to repair that and change itself to improve its functioning. And so then what you experience is you experience the outcome of that automatic changing that's happening. So you start to sleep better. You can have better quality sleep, sleep longer, less waking up at night. You can notice you feel calmer. You feel more open and aware. You have the ability to pause and contemplate rather than just be in reactive mode. It's easier to let go of mental rumination. You notice you're just cheerful for no good reason. You can focus on work tasks. You can plan and organize in a way that before you would get distracted and overwhelmed. You're noticing you don't have as high a craving for those substances that we use to calm ourselves emotionally. These are the kinds of things that you see change when you do neurofeedback.